people that in the House are doing. So what I'm going to say here is entirely on the Irish Constitution. It says freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And if anybody has a problem with that, any Chinese delegates or any the Chinese ambassador to Ireland, by all means take it up with the Constitution of Ireland, because it's very much superior than any Chinese constitution or anything that China has. Because it's very specific, the Constitution of Ireland, and the rights of the people of Ireland, and not in a communist regime. So first of all, I want to just give out a bit. I've been watching this happening. There's a bit of a trade war going to happen between Australia and China. And Australia's calling Australia and New Zealand are the ones who are leading the charge for the inquiry into the coronavirus, how it started and everything. Which I just say to people, if anything happened, there has to be inquiry. And of course there should be an inquiry. And Ireland's too afraid, and Leo Varadkar and Michael Higgins is too afraid to open their gob. Because they're too afraid of upsetting China, and this is the crack that we have to deal with in this country. By all means, if this happened in Ireland, and people might say, if that happened in Ireland, would you say it? I would say to the government in Ireland, if it did happen, say it was the opposite way in Ireland and it happened in Ireland, I would like to the Irish government let it burn people in to test and see where it came from and investigate. But China won't allow that. And Australia, was leading the fight and leading the charge. And there's a good YouTube channel, Sky News Australia, and they go very, very hard in on China. And my God, they go very good. If OT was like them, my God, we have a great country then, because OT is just afraid. I never heard OT never say one bad thing about China, because they're too afraid, and they've been known orders by the government, obviously, to keep quiet about China. But I'm saying that the Irish people, the only Irish politician I heard saying an investigation is Danny Healy-Rae, and that's the only politician I heard saying a full investigation into China. And of course there should be. Of course there should be. Like, I could go on and I can go on. And I never said this, but me and my family, we don't buy goods from China. It's simple as that. The only reason why we stopped that about 6 years ago, we said we're not going to support Chinese sweatshops, where they exploit child labour and everything like that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And I was totally against them for a long time in private, talking to politicians, some even senators in Shannon there. And I was like to them, we should cut down on import, goods coming into Ireland from China. We should just reduce it by 20% or 30%, because we shouldn't be supporting people who abuse their workers and force their workers to work long hours in sweatshops. And what I was told? It has to be done. That's what I was told. That's what one senator said. It has to be done. It has to be done. We don't care. We don't care. We're getting money out of this. Simple as that. More or less what was told. More or less what was told to me. More or less saying keep quiet. We're making money. And I won't keep quiet for so long. I hold it and I raise my voice about it. But yeah, that's another thing. And then the investigation. They should allow New Zealand and Australia to investigate, because they're the two countries that are leading the charge. Like, they are leading the charge, and I mean they're extremely leading the charge. And Ireland's in the back, not saying anything. The same with the West of the European Union. They're too afraid to stand up to China. The World Health Organization, don't even mention them. I wouldn't even let them near China. We might just have put them in Beijing and just leave them in Beijing, because that's more or less what they want to be. Because it's simple as that. If they have a problem with me speaking my mind, it's just my opinion. And if anybody has, if the World Health Organization or YouTube or anybody like that has a problem, take it up with the Constitution of Ireland. Maybe you might get a constitution amendment done, but not likely, because the Constitution of Ireland states everybody's allowed to express their opinions or beliefs, and that's very specific. It's very specific. It's not like any other foreign constitution, like China's constitution, where they just silence people for anything. Ireland has a constitution. We're lucky to have a small bit of a democracy, even though our system is a bit corrupt. We have a small glimmer of democracy. And the Constitution of Ireland still is superior than any other Chinese ambassador or any Chinese delegate to Ireland. And I say to the Taoiseach, and I say this straight, Taiwan is an island off the coast. It's called the Republic of China, not the Communist People's Republic of China, whatever they call it, on the mainland. Taiwan wants to join the World Health Organization. I can't remember what it was, but the only countries backing was Australia and New Zealand. The other and probably a few other countries around the world, but Ireland's too afraid to take a side and say who they want to join. But Taiwan, is an independent country, and it's simple as that. Taiwan is in my opinion, is the official government of China, and this because it's the Republic of China. I don't recognise the communist regime. Simple as that, and that's what it is, dictatorship. And Sky News Australia is really, really doing a good job, because they're really just pushing it. They're really just making a show of OT, and they're making a show of every other news source in the world, because they're just pushing the issue with China and pushing China the issue. And that's why they're bullying Australia. They're trying to bully Australia with tariffs and have a trade war. That's what they're trying to do, trying to shut Australia up. And Australia's not going to stand down and look at them. They're going to stand up for themselves. They're dead right. If that was how the whinge and quib and quiet, the government, and they wouldn't do anything. Like, they'll probably whinge and quib and quiet by me talking about it. Because they'll be like, oh, we'll lose so much, this, that, and the other. And it's just like, why should we? Why should we? This virus started in China. I'm not saying they're responsible for it, but it's very suspicious. I'm sure people would agree with me. If this happened in Ireland, I would be saying to the government, if they didn't let the people in, why would you not let them in just to investigate? Because that's all they want to do, investigate. It's not like they want to go and take half of China and bring it to Australia or something like that. They just want to find out how it happened and this, that, and the other. Being non-negotiable, it's something that you can't afford, because, it could lead to a cure. And I say this as a person, as a citizen of Ireland. This is what general people think. It's very suspicious. I'm sure people would agree with me. And the World Health Organization is turned the other way and just saying, no, we're getting money out of this, we don't care. And the World Health Organization should be pushing, because therefore all the countries around the world, they should be saying to China, maybe let us in just for a check to see what's going on. But no. And then there's the issue of them. I remember this very specifically. I remember this to the day I die. And this is what changed my mind completely about China, not to recognize them in any shape or form. That they tried to silence. I remember December, doctors begging for the world to listen about this virus, and how the government, put them in prison, locked them up. Some of them probably were even shot. I'm not even going to lie to people. Some of them probably were even shot because they tried to warn the whole world about this virus. And they were warning, and China kept just locking them up like they were not, and then pretending nothing happened. That's something. Like they tried to warn us, these doctors, and we just turned our backs. We just said, we're just going to ignore them. People probably still in prison to this day. And these people tried to warn us. And look at the harm it's caused, this coronavirus, across the world, across Ireland. Look at it's devastated the world's economy. Every country in the world has been devastated by this. The economy's been devastated in one shape or form. America's nearly a lot of Americans are out of work. Like, I could go on. Some, like, the whole country, the whole world, and even including Ireland, every country is nearly broken now at this moment in time because of no money. And China should be responsible. Of course, they should. I know we could all say, we could have contained it better, but China could have contained it. We have to be honest. They could have done a small bit better. And being non-negotiable is the worst thing. And people might say, Ireland's not any better for human rights offences and things like that. And that's true. I'm not going to say to people it's not true, because it is true. Because the government are treating homeless people in this country like they're nothing, and that's more or less what they're treating in China. People like they're just numbers. That's what our governments really are. But am I the Australian government? Am I the New Zealand government for standing up and saying, look, China, we just want to get to the bottom of this. That's all we want to do. We don't want to be a nuisance around that. We just want to find out the facts. Why so many of our citizens got infected. Why so many of our citizens are not with us today. Simple as. They don't want to start a trouble over. They just want to find out why. How did it happen? Where did it come from? We might find the cure from the source. If you go to the source, you find the exact. But that's the old saying too. If you go to the source, you usually find the answer. And I know a few people might support me in this, but a lot of people, and I said to the Chinese ambassador in Ireland, if you have a problem with me speaking, if you have a problem with anything like that, or any Chinese delegates, I have a right to speak out. You might silence your people, but you won't silence the Irish people, because I remember the Chinese ambassador in Ireland trying to dictate to the government of Ireland on how to cope with this coronavirus. And I still remember this, and the OT might have spinned it whatever way they wanted. But I still remember this. I remember being told that the Chinese delegates in Ireland are trying to tell us, what's going on, trying to tell us, how to deal with it, trying to give us advice. And I didn't, and I more or less said, we don't need their advice. Simple as that. We didn't handle it. Like, I admit that the Irish government handled it very badly, but by God, we didn't need China's advice. We wasn't that bad that we needed China's advice. And it's simple as that. There should be a full investigation into this virus. Thank you.